Sue earned her law degree at the University of Denver in 1976. After clerking for Judge Zita Weinshank on both the state and federal district courts, she did commercial and real estate litigation for a number of years. But as we all know, Sue's just too darn nice to be one of those nasty, gunslinging litigators. So for the last several years, she's been one of Colorado's preeminent real estate and business lawyers. Sue met Bob Martin, the outgoing president of the Highlands Ranch Rotary Club, in 1989. And guess where they met? They met right here at the DAC, at a singles party in the bowling alley. Sue was apparently bowled over by Bob because she agreed to go out on their first real date only 6 months later. They went to a movie, My Left Foot, and later on, Bob injured, you guessed it, his left foot. Sue's professional career is truly impressive. She's been a member of the Board of Governors and Executive Council of the Colorado Bar Association, has chaired the Interprofessional Committee of Lawyers and Realtors, and was a founding member of the Alliance of Professional Women. She is listed in both Who's Who in American Law and Who's Who of Emerging Leaders in America. I bet she really told those Who's Who folks what's what. Sue has been a volunteer speaker in the Denver Public Schools, a volunteer with the Women's Bean Project, a volunteer guide with the Denver Botanic Gardens, and a Denver volunteer organizer with Doug Jackson's Project Cure. But she somehow found time in her hectic life to do all of her fabulous Denver Rotary projects, both at the club and district levels. She is, in a nutshell, a whirling dervish of community service. Sue is a proud mother of Amy, who is with the Foreign Service in Cairo, Egypt, and of Brian, who is also in Cairo, where he attends the American University. Amy has a daughter, Paige, who is 5 years old, and a son, Sam, who is 3. Sue is also stepmother to Bob's daughter, Michelle, and son, Danny. Danny and his wife, Mia, have a 3-month-old daughter, Amelia, who went to the Denver Zoo this Tuesday, but slept through the whole exciting experience. Sue is an avid lover of flowers of all kinds, enjoys golf, and has even had a hole-in-one. Eat your heart out, Pete Thebus. So now I have a confession to make. This is really a lot more like a toast than a roast. I asked Bob Martin to tell me some crazy stories about Sue. He really didn't have any. I asked him about her most embarrassing moments. And at first he said he didn't know any of those either. Some folks, you see, are just too darn nice to roast. Yesterday, though, Bob called and told me at least one kind of embarrassing anecdote. While they were bicycling in Tuscany, Sue and a woman companion heeded the call of nature and wandered off into the trees beside the road. Soon thereafter, they came out, hooting and hollering. It seems they'd done their squatting in a briar patch. Do you remember that, Sue? Would the lady who led her into it please stand? Okay. But, okay, correct. But let's get off that prickly topic. We do know that Sue loves to party and have fun, and I can let you in on a little secret. Her email address is, this is true, vodkatonic@comcast.net. And Bob's, by the way, is rum and coke @comcast.net. Mine, as you may know, is geritol@comcast.net. Congratulations to you, Sue, and to you, Bob, for your great and extraordinary Rotary presidential years. You're now going to hear from tall, dark, and handsome Jim McGivney because you've heard enough of small pork and random me. So.
Well, thank you very much, Judge. As you know, it has been an excellent year. We've had a lot of fun. It was hard to get a theme for Sue's year. Where'd it go? And we tried all kinds. No Stress Sue, the year of Foxy leadership, the lawyerly leader. And we came to the saga of a smart, sweet, and sexy Sue. And Sue has led this club with such aplomb during this last year, but it hasn't always been smooth, and we'll see in just a moment. I actually came down, I worked a lot in the South, and there was a saying for women in the South that ran the families. It was the iron fist and the velvet glove, and that's a little bit of how Sue ran this club. Thank you. But her first out, the innocence of a new president, look at that smile. That is from August of last year. It will be at least 5 years before we see that back again after this hard year. She brought that tough attitude to every facet of our meetings. The head table, for example, you remember used to stretch along here, and her comment to me was, I don't want a sofa painting of the Last Supper. I'd like to have a single speaker up there, and so we did that. And her dealing with the board was just exceptional. And as you know, we have a very conservative board. You'll recognize several of them. Of course, standing out front, it'd be hard to miss the Doug Jackson, Natalie dressed at the very front, Doug McLemore at the back with a cigar, and of course the always well-dressed Bruce Peterson in the elevator fashion, doing this year's rain gear. But it was just the way she handled that conservative board, and we're going to get back to that in just a second, because right now I'm going to tell you the truth about TD and H. This is the true story of Tall, Dark, and Handsome. As it turns out, last year, about this time, Sue had every position in her committees filled except that of secretary. And so she singled out, after asking everybody else in the club, this poor engineer sitting in the back of the club who was a little overweight, not the brightest person, not the brightest light bulb in the drawer, and certainly been hit once or twice, too many times, with the ugly stick. And she walked up to this simple engineer and she said, "Hey, Tall, Dark, and Handsome, would you like to be the secretary?" Well, she had me at tall. The only issue was, the requirement was to reinforce that. Every week she had to say, "Tall, Dark, and Handsome." And now, what really irritates me is that this entire club has gone along with that ruse for the last year. And so every one of you are responsible for my rehab as I go back to being a little overweight, not the brightest bulb, and certainly been hit once too many times with an ugly stick. So that's the truth. Bob and Sue, as you know, were both presidents. They had a very, very good public persona. They were out at most of the events that you could see them and all Rotary events, but that public had a toll to it. And then we look at the private persona of both Bob. Bob's day at the golf course meant teeing up and I think bringing back game that he shot down with his golf clubs. But going on, Sue had great control of the Republicans. Last year was an election year, as you know. And Sue had great, great control over the Republicans in this club. She listened to the politics, and then she poured domestically grown, refined, organic, non-polluting, environmentally friendly oils on the potentially troubled water, giving her yet another opportunity to show her prowess and how she dealt with our conservative members of the club, of course being the Republicans. Here's a picture of Sue discussing her budget this year with Seth. Now, the reason she's wearing protective clothing, as you know, people that are accountants and in treasury positions and camels have a lot in common. They have very nasty temperaments and they spit when they get unhappy. But once again, Sue was very good at controlling it. The one thing I will tell you on a serious note is Sue is always immaculate. She always dresses perfectly. And so just had to put that in with the perfect caption when she was in Cairo. Of course, you do know she was in Cairo, and here is Sue and her daughter visiting the recently unearthed shrine to Judge Kopelki. You'll see it in the background. You can see there the judge's authentic bench demeanor. By the way, the boa that you're wearing, Sue, came from Bob's closet. It's nice to have Bob out of the closet. And of course, some of the other activities she participated in this year were the group sing-along in various languages. You'll see this year she's auditioning for the sing-along with her camel. Note Charlie Miller right next to her. New Thobe, new Kafaya. Boy, what a tailor. Doesn't he look great? By the way, these pictures are all from their trip to Egypt. Now, if